Hello, everybody. It's Dr. Boz on Tuesday night, and yeah, confessions of a YouTube doctor. This weekend, I should have been studying the information that I was supposed to give tonight. The one that's a really advanced lecture that tune in next week, and if I do my homework, you'll get to see that then. And the team and I have been working on a message that I've found really inspiring and something that I think my channel would want to know. But I got derailed. I got derailed because I was reminded in the past week of a story of the author of this book. I got this book a few years ago, a couple of years ago, and I remember reading it for the first time, thinking how interesting the way he looks at life was. And as his news over the past week, which I'll share with you for those of you that missed it, I was captured, like many of those, on the courage this man is having as he faces death. And it reminded me why I do this channel, but it also, I hope I can pass on some of the wisdom that I practiced right before this live show, and I cried. I hope I don't cry again on how much a story like this is one of the privileges of being a physician, and how I hope I can pass some of that on to you in ways that you see why we do this channel. Let's get over to it and see if I can do this without shedding a tear and show you why I scrapped the lecture that is very sciencey and very interesting, but one that we're going to do this way. All right, I'm going to push play and see if you can hear this. So I'm watching the comments to see if you can hear it.
Some of you have already guessed, so this won't surprise you at all. But I have the same cancer that Joe Biden has. So I also have prostate cancer that has also spread to my bones. But I've had it longer than he's had it. Well, longer than he's admitted having it. So my life expectancy is maybe the summer. I expect to be checking out from this domain sometime this summer. Now, I realize that for some of you, this is hitting you kind of hard because you're hearing it for the first time. Weirdly, since it's old news to me, I've just sort of processed it. So it just sort of is what it is. And I have to say that, everybody has to die, as far as I know. And it's kind of civilized that you know about how long you have, so you can put your affairs together and make sure you've said your goodbyes and done all the things you need to do. So if you had to pick a way to die, this one's really painful, like really, really painful. But it's also kind of good that it gives you enough time while your brain is still working to wrap things up. You might wonder why it took me so long to tell you, and I think I owe you an answer to that. Number one, it would change my life because everybody would start treating me like the cancer guy. You can't really there's no second way that goes. Once you go public, you're just the dying cancer guy. And I didn't want you to have to think about it. And I didn't want to have to think about it. You should know, well, if you didn't already know, I am unusually mentally tough. So while this could be much worse, for some people, I suppose, I'm handling it quite well. The pain is tough. I mean, really tough. But the mental part, I got that under control. And I can see in the comments that some of you are having a tough time with it. But remember, nothing lasts forever. Nothing lasts forever.
All right, so I'm going to show you this this slide where he talks a little bit more about the tweet that he put out today, and it's followed up by one we're going to cover in a few minutes. I know some of you have seen this. I can see in your comments that, yeah, I wasn't the only one to be captured by the courage of what this man is dealing with. I want to touch this here and do one more thing in my, there we go. Just need to get that out of the way. So when you look at what he writes, I mean, I've walked people through this story so many times, and it doesn't get any easier as I watch his courage for what he's doing. I'm going to read this out loud. So for those of you that are just listening on audio, please don't recommend that I take ivermectin or the febuxostat or Fenbin, which is one of the bendazoles. I tried that last year and to no effect. There are claims of it working, but I am aware of no patient who has benefited from it. Neither are you. Please don't recommend fasting or any diet-related system. Someone credible would have noticed if that worked. Please don't recommend any cocktail of vitamins or minerals. I very much appreciate you caring, but assume I've heard all about it, the above, and I'm overwhelmed with those same suggestions all day long. So the purpose of doing this tonight is not just because I really want to do a better job of what I was ready for, what I want to be ready for next week, but because this book, I remember reading it for the first time, and I was thinking, wow, he really has he shifts how he thinks about things. And I don't follow Scott Adams. I know he is, for those of you that don't know, he's the author of Dilbert, and I've laughed at several of his cartoons. He does have a great ability to look at how humans react to one another, especially in an office setting. And then he's gone through some kerfuffles. He's very, in the political limelight. But when he wrote that book, the one Reframe Your Brain, I was very connected to some of the things he put in here. We're going to cover a few of them so you can see the difference between how I would be approaching this, this and what he's doing. Because I do say that 25 years of seeing patients, this scene is a very intimate one. It is not, it's not something I take for granted. Every time I've been invited and trusted into the place where people go through this incredibly lonely last chapter of life, I have the privilege of learning, oh, I don't want to do it that way. Oh, I hope I can capture what this person has. And I mean, I think our mortalities become more forefront when you've lost somebody you love, but also as we add years around the sun. And I don't think that the consequences of a distant association with death and grieving is the prerequisite. I think anybody who's had pain and loss and a season about, that I've recently gone through. And I want to go back over here. Hold on, let me do this one. Yeah. At the risk of being a little vulnerable, which I'm not afraid to do, but being vulnerable enough that you respect what I'm about to say. That I have been the physician witnessing patients go through this for many different stages of their life. It is an intimate story. And although I have used stories from patients' lives to teach you about metabolism, I teach you about how a drug works, teach you about how labs change when you change behaviors, I'm not comfortable with sharing some of the stories that I've learned in that seat. And in part, it's not because I don't want to share how much it's changed my life, how much the maturity of being that physician in the first 10 years versus this physician in the last 10 years. I would much rather see me in this version than the first one. So I'm going to do something that I've done once before on the show that did not get received as well as maybe I thought it would. And that is I'm going to be vulnerable about my own journey. I'm going to share a story of mine over the last couple of years and why I did something out of character, which was stop preparing for a really advanced lecture and go completely off script because of how much I've swept into this man's courage. So be nice, because the last time I did this, I had plenty of you saying, your grief is nothing like what other people's stories. They compared my suffering and my distance in peak performance of what I was judging myself on, because it wasn't as bad as somebody else's. And I frankly don't care. I hope to show you that in this season of my life, it's been a valley, and I don't want it to be. But I'm going to start by saying, be nice to me. Please be nice in the comments. In fact, there's a Reframe Your Brain in his book that has to do with what happens with social media and internet comments. And I reread those both before I started the show to say, yeah, that isn't what matters. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my life over the last 9 months, that the improvements are present. I do appreciate those who've seen them. But I've moved dozens of times since October, since that late September hurricane, and it's just a storm. That's what I've told myself. It's not a big deal. It shouldn't have bothered me. I have been through much worse in my life, and I have done great. I mean, I'm resilient, bounced back. And when a storm hit and took out the house that we'd owned for just over a year, and we did what we would have, I don't regret doing what we did, which was live in the back room, and then we had to move out and move from hotel to hotel for probably we stayed in like 20 different hotels before we finally got to move back into a corner of the house. And it shouldn't have affected me. I have lived in Haiti for a season. I'm okay. Well, and I look back over 9 months and say, damn, that really affected me. It's still affecting me. And I'd like to think I'm coming out of this season, and I know this is where people put in the comments was like, oh, what happened to you is not as nearly as bad as the next person. And I know that. I know that it was hard for me, but there's nothing as hard as what Scott Adams is dealing with. Nothing as hard as the comparison. So then my husband and I are in this transition zone where our children no longer live at home. We are empty nesters. And again, 1 month into empty nesting, we become hurricane homeless, something we weren't ready for, and that's okay. We've been looking forward to this. We've seen other couples go through this, and we're definitely aware that it can be a rocky road if you're not careful, and yet that transition is heavier than I thought it would be. That I talk about how much my husband has been able to keep his 6 times a week average for going into a sauna. But dang, over the last 9 months, I can't do that. Since Christmas, if I've been twice a week to my sauna, something I know makes me feel better, I haven't been able to do that. I don't like failing. I sure as heck am having a tough time sharing all these failures with you. I completely stopped exercising. Something I also know I do better when I do that. Why did I stop exercising? I've given you several lectures on what happens to a woman's brain when her ovaries die, when she stops menstruating. And although it has not been a full year, so I cannot say the word menopause according to the definitions, my brain definitely feels this. And dealing with resilience in a setback should not affect me as much, but it has. I stopped sleeping as well as I usually do. And well, that just sucks. Because if you want to get over something that's hard, I am a brain healing doctor. I know that a good night's sleep is how you fix this. And then you can't just do it once a month. It's got to be sleep through the night. Most days of the week if you're going to get out of this slump. And then I stopped eating. I love eating. That I have a good friend in the last 2 years It wasn't until I said it out loud to him. He's a psychiatrist, and I really have grown to love how much I've learned from him and how enjoyable it is to talk through some of the cases that I'm working on. And I joke, yes, I've lost weight because I'm hurricane homeless and I'm down 15 pounds. But when you lose weight without trying, if a patient told me that, I would be very concerned. Very concerned. Why are you losing weight without trying? And it was the shock on my friend's face and his follow-up text that said, I might want to take that a little more seriously than I have been. I do something that I love, which is sew. And although my sewing machine also got wrecked in the hurricane, why is it I've only sewed 3 items in a year? Why did I stop doing that? So yes, I know this is not the tragedy that Scott Adams is having this week. But I also know that it is all relative to the journey you're on. And when I get the letters from you guys, when I get the emails, when I get the posts that say, how do you get out of this? How do I get my life back? How do I return to the dream that I had about my life before my health went down the toilet? And the answer is, let's put a name on it. I don't like this. I don't like it, especially for me. That what is it? Is it stress? Yes. Okay. It's stress that I have 3 companies that I'm trying. I moved to Florida thinking I was going to restore my identity that was here before I moved to Florida, that I would have this full medical clinic, and that didn't get to happen. But then this beautiful thing happened where I get to teach in a way, and I see my patients in the clinic in a much smaller capacity than I was planning on. But it's beautiful. It's not what I planned, but clearly God had this in mind for me. But it's stressful. It's stressful to say, I knew how to do this the other way. I don't know if I know how to do this sustainably. And will I enjoy it? Will I stay the course? Because when you're doing difficult things, you can't fake it. I do know that there are certain things that died when I moved to Florida and my medical clinic didn't happen the same way. There are dreams I had that are gone now, and I would not let go of them. It took me 3 years to let go of them because I really wanted them to be true. I wanted that life. And then I manage in a season of life that I'm super proud to be the mother of 3 beautiful sons, have them in my life, but that season is changing, and I've known it. This is not bizarre. It's not like I have cancer. I don't. I did lose the death of my ovaries, and I think that's not fair. And I wish I would have been even more prayerful about the patients who are going through this that I took care of for the 25 years. That when you lose things, they call it grief. Would I call this grief? I don't know if I can grieve the death of my ovaries and the way my brain isn't responding to stress the way it used to. It sucks. I really wish it was different. And, I know that I don't like labels. I am not on any medications for this, but I do not miss that the definition of depression is something very similar to what I've had over this past year. And I do not like that word. I don't want to be that. I don't want that label. But there is something that hasn't been right. Like, why am I behaving in a way that I've never done that before? Okay, maybe that's maturity. Okay, call it that. Maybe it's something I've never seen before in my life, and I'm trying to put a pin on it. But maybe, just maybe, the reason that I have been captured by this book in the past week is when I watched his story and saw, oh, yeah, this guy who's known for reframing how to deal with, to reset things. Somebody we've paid huge respects to because of his cartoon, the cartoon that he's written. He's talking about us in that cartoon, and we know it. And to listen to how he when I first read this book, I remember thinking, there's something off about his story, but I'm very attracted to it. And as I listened to his that monologue, and then went to the library, I mean, my books are out of the boxes from the hurricane. I found this book the other day, and then it was a week later where I heard his story. So I was able to grab the book and say, I wonder if I'll have the same thoughts as I was reading his book. So I'm going to cover a couple things about how he describes reframing your brain when you're in this slump, when you're in something. I mean, mine again is nothing like his, but it sucks. I didn't plan for this and I don't like this. So how do I get out of it? And I think step one is certainly reframe your brain, reframe the way you're thinking. So how do I get out of this? How do I push reset? Well, I'm going to start by using some of the things he does. So this is what his whole book is about, is he looks at, how do you reframe what you're usually saying to yourself versus not. And he has several examples in here. I'm only going to do two of them because as much as I don't like the way my brain will think in some of these moments over the last 9 months, I have used my own way to reframe it. So I'm going to use it. So there's a section there where he says, judging people. Okay, we all judge people. People judge us. When you're coming into this ketogenic space, and I love my support group here on Tuesday mornings. It is one of my favorite hours of the week. And it reminds me what God has asked me to do. But there's judgments, and people come in and they're doing good on a ketogenic diet. They're not doing good on a ketogenic diet. Some people come when they're only doing good. Some people come when they're only not doing good. And you can find this quick judgment for people, right? But he says, look at it this way. We're all flawed, yet we're all good at different things. And he writes a little paragraph about that in there as he talks about this, saying, just know that they're going to be, you're designed to be good at certain things. And I've shared with my inner circle a couple of books that have really helped me over the last year, saying, when you surround yourself with the team of people that supplements what you're not good at, oh man, it's like an orchestra, and you don't have to be good at those things. But it first starts with recognizing that you're not going to be the best at everything. You're going to have this team. I mean, just like a family, some people on the family are going to do better than others. And when you can network through that, that does change the pressure of saying, yeah, they're better at it than I am. And instead of judging them. There's a couple of ways that I think knowing who you are was another section that I think of a maturity. Like as a young woman, as a young physician, you want to have the answer for every patient. You want to really be able to lean in and say, gosh, there's so much to learn, but I know that answer. And so when I was looking at, he gave two examples. One of them is, I am my thoughts. And certainly over the last year, I would say, no way, I am not my thoughts. That in every season where I've coached patients, where I've been there to help them, Dr. Amon's clinic does a great job of saying, these automatic thoughts are not true. And especially when you're in a season where the slump feels like it's way longer than it should have been. These automatic thoughts start with asking yourself, are they true? And how many of them are not? As I look at the way he reframes it, he says, I am what I do. Now, I'm going to add to this in a minute, but it is the same place where the behavior frames the emotion far better than the thoughts do. So you might have heard the montage, you can't think your way into better behaving, but you can behave your way into better thinking. That action leads how we think about ourselves. And so as much as this isn't a perfect statement, I am what I do, it is a pretty good one. All right, so let's do it again. So this is another classic one. Find yourself when you're trying to grow spiritually or grow emotionally, and even just in the maturity of your life. Find yourself. You've heard people tell you that. But I love how he's flipped this to author yourself. Now, I'm going to add my own take on this in a minute, but I think that shift of how you push your brain to be an action verb instead of find yourself, which is not nearly as strong of a verb as author yourself. And then you take ownership of that. I find when I work with patients that are in a slump, helping them see that, helping them see that there's responsibility that you have for yourself. There is an action verb that you are supposed to be doing. This is not passive. This is an action verb. This is called life for a reason, and that you do get to write it. You do get to write it. And again, I'll show you my take on it here in just a minute. So I thought I would say, okay, what are the steps that I've been doing? Because obviously I haven't shared all of this with you. I'm not in the lowest part of my journey. I am in a season that I do think is better, but it has been heavy. It's been way heavier than I want it to be. And as much as I can study what it looks like inside your brain to have that year when you're going through menopause, when your hormones are changing, and you say, well, I have access to all the knowledge, I have access to all the treatment, why can't I just buck up? So I'll start with showing what I did. So number one, I started with what works. In my life, routine is, again, really important for how I feel that rhythm. And when I look at the patients who are in the deepest of depression, I mean, we're headed for electroconvulsive therapy. They are TMSing to try and get just any rhythm. It is the assignment of the chaperone next to them, whoever is their first in command to help them through this valley, that we set up a routine, that the routine has to be stable. And not going to lie, 20 moves in the last year, it's the opposite of stable. It's not stable at all. And I'm happy to say that over the last month, where my kitchen is back in the place it should be, that the three things that I have worked on the most are sleep, the routine that I want to reset, and then which activities will I put in there. I'm going to add to that in just a second, so I'll go to this one. So if I go too fast, if I start doing this too quickly, James Clear's book on how do you stack a habit on top of the last one, it's not an accident that I know better than to go too fast. That I have some big dreams about what I think patients could benefit from. And as soon as there's a setback in any one of my businesses or in my rhythm of getting to Bible study, another really important thing that I've known, when I do that, I feel better. When I'm next to the other women who are using their faith to get through a difficult time, I don't have to know who they are. I can just hear their journey and recognize that that's what my mother would have told me to do. That's what my sister would help me do. That's what my God asked me to do. And I look at a life that's doing that, and that routine of being made aware of that it's just way more powerful than I ever thought it would be. Gosh, I don't want to cry again. So I know if I go too fast, I will crash. I've done this enough times. Now, usually I'm handling way more than what I've been handling in the last year. So it bothers me. It bothers me deeply to say, why can't I handle that? I've always handled that. So pace of how you change the behaviors. I cannot push reset back to what I was 2 years ago. I sure as heck can't do that in the matter of 7 days. This is a slow step forward. So one of the things I did put back on my schedule is, there were a bunch of donut holes on the weeks for how many times did you get in the sauna? And I know this is not a big effort. I love this. I feel so much better when I do it. That I just said, your goal is once. Your goal is one time. And again, my husband gets in there right next. We have matching his and her saunas. I don't like how his stinks. And so we do it together. Why can't I get in when he does it? I don't know. It just wasn't happening. So set a goal that I could stick with. And then do not let anybody add onto my schedule until I've got that rhythm stable. But the last one is something that has happened in the last week that I think I've done several workshops where I've led other people through these valleys. What does it look like to write truth about yourself? And I know this sounds really cheesy, so hang with me. When you are in a valley and you lie to yourself, I mean, I don't mean like, the negative thoughts that you say out loud. I'm not talking about that. I'm looking at what are you designed to do? And are you leaning into that? And I've had times where I knew this is exactly what I'm going to do. This is what my plan is. And it did not happen. And I will tell you, in the last year, I've had several plans where I'm like, can't do it. Can't do it. And so you say, what are the truths I know about me? And one of them has been, I'm a great mom. I'm a great mom. Oh, this is one of those moments I wish it wasn't a live show. I'm a great mom because I had a mom who was amazing. And if you read that book, and people ask me, what is the book any way you can about, I tell them, it's a love story. It's a love story about a mother and a daughter. And so I coupled what it is I know. I know I'm a great mother. And when I look at how do I change a behavior that I don't like about me, let's take exercise. Let's take working out. And how can I do a better job? In fact, I think one of the reasons why that exercise has just been a nightmare for me the last year is I've always coupled it with my kids, and they're gone, which is not shocking. This is normal. But as I look at writing down the truth, saying, how can I find these places where life isn't going like you planned? And adding the truth under what it is that I know is true. I know I am a good mother. And then coupling the behavior to that. I want to say about 3 more things, but I do not want to cry anymore. Like, as I look at being a good leader in my company, being a good mentor to young women who are starting out their journey, they don't know what they want to be when they grow up. They have lots of uncertainties. That when I look at where my time gets spent in the week, making sure that truth, that is something I know God designed me to do, was to be a good mentor to other young women, business owners, women with a dream, women trying to become new medicine without a divorce, without kids in rehab. And there's plenty of my colleagues with that I went back to read this book this weekend, and I'm reading it again, and I can identify why I thought this was off the first time I read it. And this is no judgment for this man. I will pray for him. It is a story that is not unfamiliar, that the season of life he is facing is so lonely. We are all doing it. He said it on that. We're all dying. And so his courage to talk about it and to be incredibly transparent about what he's doing. Yet I kept holding my breath, listening to what is missing. And again, I've had the privilege of sitting in the room and watching people do this chapter of life it is a true honor to watch this, to be part of it, to be invited in and to tell the truth in moments that they might not tell the truth to anybody else too. And so as I advance this slide, let me show you this. Say, okay, here's his update. Here's Scott Adams' update a day or so after he announced to everybody that he had cancer. Stage 4 cancer he's been treating for a while, cancer that's all over his bones, cancer that, just like many of the emails I get from people, like, I have the same cancer as your mom, can you take care of me? And I have to say, no, you live in Seattle. You have to be near your medical team. I can't do that. I can teach ketogenic diet, but not when you are in the last throes of fighting this incredible journey. This diet isn't just chemistry. There is a lot of psychology involved, and adding one more ounce to your life is not the right answer. So here's what he writes a day later. I have decided on a path of treatment, but I won't be telling you the details because I think you know how that would go. My odds of survival are probably up to 30% from zero. I'll be working with the top doctors in the field, and hey, you never know. And so you again bear witness to this very up close and personal story. And it's also where I saw this, that yes, he frames that shift in a very immature thoughts. I am my thoughts. And then he advances to the framework that says, I am what I do. Yes, that is a more mature thinking. But I'll tell you, for my personal journey, there is a higher architect involved in who I am and how do I get out of this valley. And I am who God says I am. I have been gifted with some incredible talents. And when I lean into them and give the glory to God, it is easy. It is not difficult. I could have done the testosterone lecture. Especially when I remember I don't have to come up with all this. I know that I have a faith that is incredibly powerful. And I know Scott Adams doesn't. Again, I don't follow him. I really dove back into his story this last week, where the framework he uses is something that is not about a higher power. He does not believe in that. And as I've watched so many patients do this valley, I would trade the framework of adding my faith to whatever valley I'm in. That you can find yourself is that very immature. You can author yourself, again, a much stronger version. And I have tried to author myself, and sometimes I've done okay for a season, but I wear out. But when I remember there is a divine author who has written my life, and he saw this valley. He saw that I was going to try to be that strong for myself. And that divine author is the freedom that I hope everybody watching this can lean into for their life. And I know you come to this channel to better your health. And I hope you see that I believe one of the gifts God has given me is to be a great teacher. I know I'm a great mother. I know I'm a great wife. And I know I'm a great teacher. And I just want to say thanks for the grace that as you've watched a season of my life not be perfect, know that I'm just as human as you. And the valleys they're rotten. They are tough. And as I look at the framework that I'm using to restore me to my best version of me, I'm going to use good chemistry. I'm going to be in a ketogenic state. I'm going to use the relationships that God has put in my life. And I will resurface. Not nearly as fast as I wanted to. And definitely with estrogen on board. All right. We're going to do a quick commercial before we take your questions. The questions I was hoping that my team would find for me are, have you been to a season and of what I've just reflected on? And how might that look? To either share it or to have a question about how I've done it. I actually, despite my tears, I am doing so much better over the last month, but it's way slower than it should be. All right, let me show you this. I want to go to, here we go. There is something that I shared with everybody last, let's see, was it 2 weeks ago? And that is that Amazon is a beast. And when you fight with Amazon, there are definitely things that go right. We are back up on Amazon for our raspberry lemonade, but I will tell you that if you go over here and you click on the shop, there is a sale that continues to, you buy one, you get one half off for one of our best products. This is the one Amazon's giving us a tough time for. It's back up on Amazon. It's not on sale on Amazon. In order to get the sale, you do have to put two in the cart. One is at full price and the second one's half price. If you wanted to buy any more than that, the sale only applies if you put an even number in the cart. If you put an odd number in the cart, we could not get the coupon to work that way. Maybe we should have written the sale differently, but this is how we did it. And so if you want that, it is the best price you'll get for this one. It's something my first product, the highest amount of ketones in a powder is in that one. And again, it supplements how I can keep doing this with no paywall between me and the content. I promise you that the content will have more science next week, and the slides are awesome. My team did a great job. I just wasn't ready to talk about that just yet. All right, so let's go to the questions and see if they are here. And I'm gonna push refresh there. That's amazing. Yeah, the good news is I'm just gonna read some of them because the questions are empty, because either nobody has questions or nobody dare be that vulnerable that of what I've been reading about. So let's let me just actually call it a night. That it's 45 minutes in. I just want to say thank you for supporting me. Thanks for tuning in. I do like the live shows because it's one chance I get to take off the veil and be present. So I'll see you next week.